Thanks to Flowers by Zach Lowe, Albuquerque's family-owned florist since 1993, creating beautiful, fresh arrangements at affordable prices with unmatched customer service. Order online at flowersbyzachlowe.com. Today's guests are Gary and Ann LeBlanc, founders of Mercy Chefs, who deploy to communities across the country and around the world in the wake of disaster, serving chef-prepared hot meals to people on some of the hardest days of their lives. I had the privilege of serving with them after the devastating fires in Lahaina, and their story is so powerful. Stay tuned. Welcome to this episode of Table Talks. I am thrilled today to have Gary and Ann LeBlanc with me from Mercy Chefs. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you for having us. It's so good to be with you.
It is. Thank you so much.
Well, Gary, I got to meet you a couple of years ago, and it may be longer than that now. Time really goes by quickly, but you came to Albuquerque to speak at one of our Citizen Church events, and Ann couldn't come that time. And this is the first time I've talked to you, and I know that one day we'll get to meet in person too. I feel pretty sure.
For sure. I've been looking. I was so sad I had to miss that trip. So we've been on a journey. So that was.
Yes, you have.
Right at the height.
And I feel like I'm really good friends with your daughter, Megan, and it's so crazy because we became social media friends, Facebook friends, when she was about to have the twins. And because we were praying for them, and it was right around when the fires were in Maui, all that was happening, and we were praying, and we just made a connection. And it's just, I really enjoy that. I keep up with all their kids anyway, their children.
Right.
I'm just so happy for you, and I love your family, and Megan's husband, Nick, and Craig and Sarah. So you guys have such a legacy and wonderful family around you. You founded this amazing, it's a ministry. I want to call it a nonprofit, but it's a ministry, and it's called Mercy Chefs. 20 years ago, you just celebrated your 20-year anniversary, and I know it's hard for you to believe. Tell us a little bit about Mercy Chefs. Take us back to the beginning.
Well, I'm a career hotel restaurant guy, and I had spent my whole career trying to stay out of kitchens and on the front of the house. So I kept getting thrown back in, and was finally in a place here in Virginia that I would never have to see a kitchen again. And we were pretty excited about that. We'd moved 9 times in our first 10 years of marriage, and we had just bought a house. I was stable, Ann was stable. It was this great moment in our life that coincided with Katrina hitting New Orleans. And that being my hometown and where I came up in the hotel restaurant industry, and seeing people standing on the bridges that I recognized or used to work with was something I couldn't get around. And so I went down and volunteered as a cook with other groups, and worked really hard, and was forever changed by 100 different moments in the 2 weeks that I was there, but believed that there was a better way to feed people. I thought high quality food could be done at high volume. And I thought that's what people deserved that had just been through something like Katrina.
And do you cook also?
I do. In fact, some of Gary's best recipes are ones that are mine, but we have a lot of fun with that. But he did leave for New Orleans. We had moved into our house over on Friday and through the weekend, and he left on Monday for New Orleans. He said, I just have to go. And we were renovating the kitchen, and it was not complete. And so I had a microwave and a table, and everything was torn up.
Coffee maker, yeah.
And I didn't drink coffee at the time.
Yes.
And the garage held the refrigerator. So we, the kids and I hunkered down, and we made the best of it. But lots of pizza, I think, that during that time. But it was definitely life-changing for Gary, that ultimately changed the whole trajectory of our family.
Gary, did you come back from that trip? Did you know when you were there or on your journey home, or when did you realize that this is something God is asking us to do?
Um, I, yeah, there were a couple of broken moments during those 2 weeks where I knew my heart was just being shattered, and that the Lord was going to rebuild my heart in a way that He wanted it to be. But it was a real Jonah time for me. I wanted to run from the Lord. I did not want to answer this call. I knew the call was there, and it just had to sort of develop, and it took 9 months, and I fought so hard, and God got tired of trying to tell me gently, and finally just spoke out loud to me. It was a crazy thing. I'm not given to that sort of thing, first and only time, but in an audible voice in the room where I was praying, He said, "Feed people, just go feed people." And I couldn't argue with it much after that. I did tell the Lord, "Here's 8 names, and here's 8 people that could do it better than me. Do you need phone numbers or emails? Like, how can I help you get a hold of them?" But to no avail, to no avail.
And
That
I
would
will
be,
say,
yeah.
in those 9 months, Gary, he definitely was doing a struggle. He was up almost nightly with a notepad and down in our living room, just sketching out kitchen design and if he moved what kind of equipment in and did things, how he could get 10,000 meals out of a mobile kitchen. And it was quite, it was quite the journey, and something that I saw and said, wow, this isn't going away. But he wasn't embracing it 100% either. So,
It is so interesting because I think the audible voice would do it for me too.
right.
I have, I have asked God so many times if you would, it's just interesting because I've said, God, if you would just say it out loud, then it would be so easy to follow. But He did say it out loud to you. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you still question, did I make that up in my mind? Something like that. And I often tell people when they're asking, how do I hear God's voice? This is just my go-to, and I'm not sure that it's everybody's, but I think when God's asked me to do something that I know totally lines up with His word, whether, I think even if I jump and it's not exactly, what He said, He's going to bless it because my heart was right. And the enemy, the devil, won't ever ask you to go love people through food and ultimately maybe bring them to Christ and to bless people on their worst day. I've heard everyone on your team say that at least once when I'm in a prayer circle when we were in Maui, that we're going to bless someone on the worst thing that could happen to them, and you're coming with those meals. And that's beautiful that you had that experience. I just this week, I don't know when our podcast will air, but this week just came back from 9 days in Peru with
Mm.
with Noel Yates and World Help, and I thought we were going on a vision trip, like to find just to kind of scouting. It was a bunch of female pastors, and no, it was a it was it full-fledged missions trip. It rocked my world. I've been on missions trips, my whole life. This one was unique, and wow, God just speaks and speaks, doesn't He? And I told people I don't tromp around in the swamps of the Amazon. That's kind of not my. This is more my speed, right? What you're looking at. And I caught myself in knee-high boots, traipsing through sludge and septic stuff, and down into the Amazon. Anyway, it was a beautiful time. So I was so excited today that you were coming on because my heart has been so recently stirred again. And
Yes.
then what you guys do, to know that you've laid your life down to do that for 20 years, it truly blows my mind. You don't get to walk away every day. You don't go on a trip and then you don't relive it every day. You relive it every
Right.
day. It's just unbelievable. Did you ever imagine that Mercy Chefs would grow into what it is today?
Oh no, I had no idea. I would have run even harder, even further. I really, I had no idea at the beginning, except that that was what I knew I needed to do. I think my vision and my ability stretched out to a barbecue grill and an igloo on the back of my pickup truck. I didn't see much further than that, but it's been a walk of obedience. And the commitment I made to the Lord was, if you'll tell me clearly, if you help me understand, I promise to obey, with no hesitation. And that's how it's sort of expanded and grown. There were hard years, there were long years. We grew very slowly. Um, but the Lord has taken us to places I don't think anybody could have imagined. And I always say that if it's smarter than you, if it's bigger than you, if it's more powerful than you better never say it's you. And Mercy Chefs is kind of like that. I have no brag in this whatsoever, except I just have done, um, um, uh, everything I've done out of love and obedience with the Lord's grace. It's been a great equation.
I've never seen anything quite like it, honestly. But I kind of answered your question, the next question I want to ask you a moment ago, but I wanted to hear it in your words. And you feel it's important. I've heard you say, even when you were out here with us, that people who've lost everything, or for them, the most tragic point in their life, maybe, that you want them fed with dignity and amazing food, and not handing them a cold sandwich or something stale. And why is that so important to you?
Um, Because it's the Lord's call. If you go do anything in the name of the Lord, you can't do it second class. You can't do it easily. I'm out there representing the Lord to people that are hurting and searching. And if I'm going to do that, I better do it the very best I can. I remind my team all the time that we're setting the Lord's table of hospitality. It's His table, and one night He's going to come and sit down and eat with us. Is the meal we put out that day something we can be proud enough to say, Lord, it was the best we could do with what we had? And if it's not, we should go do it over again. And that's why it's so important to me. I had a pastor friend in Haiti tell me one time that the Haitian people don't need to hear the gospel. He said they need to see the gospel. They need to have the gospel intersect their life in a moment of need. They don't need to hear it over and over again. They need to have it touch their lives. And he said, Gary, that's what Mercy Chefs does. You touch people with the gospel of Jesus Christ in that moment of need. So if that's what we're doing, boy, I better be doing it with all my might and all my power.
I just, wow, I'm have chills while you're talking, because I, it's just beautiful. And what you said, I can tell it's so deep in your heart. Or like you said, you wouldn't have done it 20 years. And then, you mentioned Haiti. That's a whole other conversation for me. I love that country so much, and love being there, and just your heart for the Haitians. That's just huge too. I feel like they're such a forgotten people,
Yes.
because their country can't offer anything to anyone. So no one wants to save them. That's my little jab politically. I don't mean to, but I feel for them so, so deeply. And you're exactly, I love everything you're saying. The heart of God is the heart of, I kept thinking that last week in Peru, reminding myself every time I go away like that God said, whenever you've done it to the least of these, and they're not the least because of who they are in Christ, but with their poverty and their lack and what they don't have. And I feel like I can't give enough, like I can't do enough. And anything I do, I would catch myself saying, God, I know this pleases you. I feel you smiling. I know this pleases you, what we're doing for people that can't do for themselves. They're doing all they can, and that's all
Mhm.
they can do. And you go through the avenue of food, which is my favorite thing. Our family bases a great vacation on if we had good food or not. If we did not eat good food, we don't care where we are. If the food wasn't great, we don't feel like it was a good time. So we're always planning the next meal right when we're eating the meal we're eating. But
Are you from the
Gary,
South?
I am. I'm from Mobile, Alabama,
There you
originally,
go.
and moved out here to Albuquerque right after Galen and I got married. I was 19. and he was
Wow.
23, and we've been here the 45 years.
Wow.
And
Wow.
crazy. And we're actually going to Alabama this week for our family will come in shifts, but we'll all at some time be together, all 18 of us, and 19. Our oldest granddaughter is getting married October 1st, so then it'll be 19 of us. But
Wonderful.
yes, I'm from the Deep South, and everything's about food, and all my recipes and my
Food is
cookbook are
love, and
Southern.
that was, Gary's grandmother's. That's what he taught him, and what he saw in Katrina was anything but love. There was no, he served green beans out of one of those giant cans that they didn't get heated, they didn't get spiced, they just got dropped cold on a plate, and it it changed him just because his people were so impacted, and he just thought there's just this isn't what people need when they've lost everything.
You know, when they get that first hot meal, because you get there as quick as you can. I was experienced it firsthand with the Maui fires, and you're
Mhm.
there. I see when there's a natural disaster or something happens, and I follow Mercy Chefs, and it comes up and it says we're deploying to, and I can see it all. The person that gets there first, and then they have to find a kitchen and start setting up. So it takes a minute to get it going, just quickly. You guys are fast. But that first little bit of time, people are just grabbing anything they can find to help people have sustenance and eat. But when someone comes through and gets the meal, or we deliver a hot meal to them, what do you hope they feel in that single moment?
Mhm.
That's for you.
Oh, it's we that's I'm on the front line of handing out food a lot. I go out with the media team, and we often are looking for the story, the impact, what's happened to people, so we can share their story with everyone else. And so it's very important that you know I won't allow them to go out. I said, you can't go unless you have meals with you, and I'll go with them. And I can't tell you the number of people that have just fallen into my arms weeping. And I didn't really understand it at first when Gary came to me and said, I need to do this. Um, and then I went with him and I saw the impact. And there are communities that Mercy Chefs will pull in, and they'll say, oh, we know everything's going to be okay. Mercy Chefs is here, which is astounding to me. I mean, that even back, this was 2018, I think, 2017, Hurricane Michael that hit Panama City, Florida. That community, Mercy Chefs came in and they said, oh, we're going to be okay. Mercy Chefs is here. And they were definitely a community that was forgotten. And our hope when they receive one of our hot meals is that they open that box and they feel Christ's love. We had a volunteer, amazing volunteer that worked with us, and she prayed over the meals and said, Lord, if this is the only Bible they open today, let them hear your voice. Let them see Jesus in this meal. And that is our heart's cry. I mean, that's what we just want them to feel, loved by Jesus. It's not even us, but that they feel the love of Jesus in that moment.
And they do. They
And they,
absolutely
yeah.
do. So, Gary, I know you can't go to every disaster and cook every meal. So, who cooks these meals, and where do you find these people that want to come work with you for not much, if anything?
Well, we have the best collection of chefs that work for us. Some of the very best chefs in the country, and they're incredible. But more than their technical ability, their culinary acumen, they all have a heart for the Lord, and they are all ready to dig in. And then our volunteers. I mean, we'll work with 5,000 volunteers this year. I think over the 20 years, we've worked with 37 or 38,000 volunteers. Some phenomenal number. The people, the neighbors that want to help their neighbors. Um, the neighbors that have helped their neighbors, but then they want to go with us to the next disaster and volunteer again. It's just incredible. And most of our chefs that come on staff volunteered with us when the storm hit their town. And they'll be out there with us and they'll be like, this is pretty cool. Can I come again? And then they come again. And then they're like, I really would love to do this instead of being in a restaurant or a hotel or a catering. This is what I want to do. And they all say the same thing. I never knew that I could take my career and serve Jesus. And boy, when they realize that what God has trained them up and prepared them in can be used as worship, they're in. They just won't stop. And these are the people that sleep on floors. These are the people that will drive through the night. These are the people that'll shower with a bottle of water. They're going to do whatever they have to do to get the job done. They're called, they're anointed, and they're incredibly talented and passionate about what they do.
It doesn't feel like this should make sense. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't feel like it should work, but it does. It's just, that's why it's supernatural when
Yeah.
God asks you to do it, because even when you were writing on paper downstairs in your home, you're thinking, this does not make any sense. How do I do this on a huge scale? Like you said, you can do it out of your truck with an igloo and a grill, but how do I do this for thousands of people when a disaster hits? And I think so many people, they misunderstand disaster relief work. We go through the line at TJ Maxx and they ask for extra money, round up to give to something. But what people don't realize, my opinion, I'd love for you to share, is that there are faces like you guys behind every, nonprofit, these especially faith-based nonprofits that go into for any situation, whether it's whatever the need is, in your case, disaster relief. I think people misunderstand. They don't put faces to what's happening on that field. What do you think? What do you think people misunderstand about your kind of work?
Well, what I hear is that the church, the faith-based groups, are the first ones there always. They do the most always, and they stay the longest always. That's what I hear from the people that we serve. I think folks that watch that happen, what they don't know is we're not the government. We're not FEMA. We're not funded by the government. That we do this out of love and compassion, sometimes with our own dollar. We're not compensated by the government. I don't, all the government money goes somewhere, and I'm sure people are doing good with it, but we don't see it. And I think that's what people misunderstand with the faith-based organizations that are out there, that we are not government funded. And we're there for a calling, and it's not a job for us. And people don't understand that. And it goes back, I think, I'm going to preach a little bit here, just real short.
I love
I
it.
think it goes back to the church abandoning our role in communities. It's not the government's job to take care of the least of these. It's the church's job. And I don't know when we did that here in this country, but we gave it away. And we said, we'll let the government take care of us when there's a need. It's not the government's job or role, it's the church's role. And I just really hope that through the work that we're doing, through the people that hear this podcast, we realize that it is our duty and it is our job. It is the call of the church, is to serve our communities, not wait for the government to come do it for us.
And it's the reason that we go to a church. There was a time, probably somewhere around 2015, 2016, and we were invited to be in the back of a school. And we were in Texas and serving after major floods there. And I remember going, it was my kids were finally old enough that I could go along sometimes with Gary. And I got there and I thought, our original mission was always to make the church center of community. You're hidden behind here. They're not seeing Jesus. this is really hard. There was all kinds of conflict and things happening on the site. And I said, this isn't what you were called to do, Gary. Your call was to make the church center of community, to bring people to the church, to be fed spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And none of those are complete. You have to have all three areas where needs are being met, especially in times of brokenheartedness and so many difficulties. And so now it's our mission to find the church and be the church and have the church become center of community, because that's our call. That is ultimately our call. We aren't a proselytizing organization. We aren't giving tracts out and all the different things. We have a very clear logo on our food box, and it has the cross right in the center of it. And that's how we share. But working alongside a church, then they become responsible for those spiritual needs. And I can't, there are a number of churches, I'll never forget a church in Wilmington, North Carolina, and they were serving with such passion. And we came into their parking lot. The following, they didn't have service the first because the floods were still happening from the hurricane. And a week later, their first Sunday, where they had been serving for over 10 days in the community, over 100 people made decisions for Christ in their congregation. And that church has become and has sustained that growth, and continued to grow since then. And that's what our call is. I mean, we want Jesus to be lifted up and the star. And that's our goal, is that we lift the church in that. And so it's a great honor to
That's
do that.
wonderful. I've alluded to, and I'll share just a moment, but I, along with several other women, got to go to Maui right after the Lahaina fires, and we sent teams from our staff for a couple of months. So it was probably about day 7 to 10. I don't remember exactly when I got there. So Mercy Chefs was up and running, and we pulled up to the church, the Citizen Church Maui, and it was just happening. Everybody has a job. No one's messing around. Everybody's going. You guys found this amazing kitchen at this amazing restaurant that couldn't be open to cook the food, and then they would bring it down to the church, and meals were served to people that could get there. And then I jumped in a truck with Sarah's daughter, and I jumped in a truck to go to the fire zone where the fires had burned. And they said, you might want to wear a mask because there's still fumes. And I said, do the people that are stuck there, do they have masks on? And they said, no. I said, I'm not wearing a mask. And we went up and down those streets. The smell from the fire, it was smoking. I mean, it was just a week. And we're yelling just down the street, hot meal, and these people would come out from their house just weeping to take their hot meal. And we had a truck, just Miranda Moe's truck was just full of hot meals, and we're just going as fast as we can up and down streets that no one was going into yet. And Mercy Chefs has such a great name, and also Citizen Church has such a great name for serving that island, that they were letting us pass barriers that we should not have been able to get past, so we could get this food to people. And it was just, I couldn't even fathom what I was experiencing. And then coming back to the church, tables and tables full of hundreds of more people eating that could drive there or walk there, and counselors, pastors in corners praying for people. That's the beauty of it being at a church. No one was getting on to us or asking us what we could do. And it was just going night and day, and seeing the amount of volunteers that had, many of them lost everything, and they were there serving in the middle of their loss so they could help others. And I know it helped them because they got to serve as they were hurting so badly. It just blew my mind. And the food that came through there, I couldn't believe it. And I know how hard it is to cook for 20 people. When we have family dinner on Monday night, I'm thinking, how do you cook for hundreds? Like you said, and it's food. This is what I noticed there. I don't know if you do this everywhere, but it was all kinds of food, but a lot of it was really fun dishes that they're used to because it's the island, and it's comfort food for them. I sat down, I'm like, this is crazy. It's amazing. It just had a whole flair about it, like if you chose a themed restaurant. And that's the kind of food they were getting. So I I just had such a different opinion, and you do when you get hands-on, right? You
Right.
Yeah.
that was an unbelievable thing. And that's just one place. And you've done this for 20 years. Everywhere you Mercy Chefs was in London, Kentucky, and my daughter-in-law, her family, London had tornadoes last year, and Mandy's family lives there. And it's just amazing. You've impacted people that we are connected to all over the world, and this country especially. So I'm very grateful. So that's my story. I know you have thousands of stories of the impact that you've had. So, Anne, I would love to know. You said you go out a lot with to collect the stories. You want to know what is this, what are we really doing besides serving food? Is there, I know you have hundreds, but is there a story that really stands out to you that I will never ever forget this?
Yes, for sure, because it sort of impacted how we another step in our operation when we arrive in a community. Um, we were in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and the hurricane had hit, Hurricane Delta, Laura. We were at this church 3 times that year because they had 2 hurricanes hit Lake Charles and then massive flooding along with the ice storm. Anyway, they had their share. And so that pastor, I said, it's been good not to see you for a couple of years. We saw him last weekend, but we were asked by another organization. They found this HUD housing um, elder care facility or people with disabilities that the staff at the facility had left. It was not officially assisted living. I've learned the difference now that there's retirement communities and then there's assisted living facilities. Against the law for the assisted living facilities to abandon people in the building. It is not for retirement communities. So there were people in 3-story and the whole complex had been blown up. I mean, it was a absolute disaster. Walls caving in, no power, 98-degree heat. And we went over with meals and I said, I have to do something more. But this woman came over on her walk. She fortunately was in a 1st-floor apartment versus the 3rd floor where there was also a quadriplegic up on the 3rd floor trapped and not able to be assisted down. And we got meals to all of them. And she came up, it was during COVID, and she had a mask on and we had masks on. And she said, after we had the meal, she said, this meal brings me such joy. I can't thank you enough. These are tears of joy. And she said, I know we're not supposed to get close to people right now because of COVID, but can I have a hug? And I was just like, absolutely. And I hugged her and I prayed with her and we left and we were able to get through some other friends, the Homeland Security team that was there in Lake Charles, and they sent over um, ambulances and teams and they evacuated our dear lady on the walker, but also the quadriplegic and many others in that facility. And since then, it's become a hallmark of Mercy Chefs. We get into a community and immediately begin to look for assisted living facilities because sometimes they don't have power and aren't able to cook for their residents, and these retirement communities. And there are stories after stories of these forgotten elderly people in our communities. And so that's the one that sticks out the most for me. And I still to this day pray for my sweet friend and know God met her and cared for her. And that's a beautiful moment of impact that we had.
Today's episode is sponsored by Herencia, Albuquerque's home for authentic Mexico City inspired cuisine. Led by 2025 Chef of the Year Enrique Vadavinos, Herencia serves bold flavor and heartfelt hospitality. They were also just voted Best New Restaurant in Albuquerque. Check out the menu at herenciaabq.com. This episode of Table Talks is made possible by our sponsors, including the Denclow team at Coldwell Banker Legacy Real Estate. Buying or selling a home in New Mexico? Jason and Bree Denclow of the Denclow team bring more than 30 years experience and a belief that real estate isn't just a transaction, it's personal. With unmatched dedication and real value, they will be with you every step of the way. Start today at homebuyingabq.com. Hey friends, I'm so glad you're here. If you're enjoying this episode, please take a second to subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with a friend. It's the best way for people to find the podcast and to be encouraged. Now, back to the conversation. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, how do you carry the emotional weight of all this? Because, I went there. Maui, I'm closer to because we have a church there, but we can go in and work and volunteer, and we leave and go back to our life. And you guys carry this every single day. How do you handle the emotional weight of it all?
I compartmentalize. I put it in little boxes, and there was a time when all my little boxes were full, and Anne recognized that and said, "All right, let's start unpacking these and make a little more room." But for our team, it was the condo collapse down in Surfside, Florida, when the condo went down. We got conscripted by the governor of Florida and embedded with the search and rescue teams. So we were behind the barriers a block from where the condo came down, and we custom fed these search and rescue teams, these men and women that were in the rubble doing unspeakable work, and just loved on them.
5 meals a day. So our
5 meals a day, 24 hours a day. We
had
constantly fed them. If they were working, we were working. And when it was over, a couple people on our staff started having dreams, and they hadn't seen anything themselves, but taking on that emotional distress, like you said, it's cumulative and it builds up to a point. And so it was during that time we put a staff psychologist on our team. He has a real full-time day job, but he has a toll-free number. He has a email, and he'll take texts. And anyone on our team is able to call Dr. Treg and talk through things with him. I just don't know how to process this. And he works with our team and teaches us about emotional self-care, about caring for each other, and when we need to get more help than we can just working through each other. So you're exactly right. It does take a toll, but we've corporately made arrangements to care for our team members because they are always in a tough spot.
And I think one of the biggest thing is to be able to talk about it. And so I'm a big talker. And so our team, the marketing team and we get in first often. And, I'll just start jabbering with them as we leave whatever devastation we've seen. And I start saying, wow, that was bonkers, wasn't it? Just to because if you're able to talk about what you've seen, it really does help healing begin, and you share it with, and so that's what Dr. Treg has taught us is shared words so that we can speak the same language to each other. I don't think bonkers is officially one of the words he suggested that we use, but it does help if you can kind of share the experience as you talk. I mean, Kerrville, Texas last year was another just absolutely devastating situation with children lost. We ended up getting to site with meals with a search and rescue team that found a baby. And they had just found it when we arrived with meals. And so that opportunity to pray with them after what they're walking through, our ability to serve search and rescue people who really in times of disaster see unspeakable things, and um, our team, we've become pretty resilient in all of it. And Dr. Treg has definitely helped. He's a Christian psychologist, and so it's been a beautiful thing for us.
Yeah, the grace of the Lord is sufficient
Yeah.
for us in all of this as well.
And it's great to have the counselor, the therapist on retainer for you guys, because I'm thinking already, I've just been back a few days, and this whole image, what we just did. And I mean, we went so far back in the jungle, and villages we went to had never had a visitor except for someone from their village. So, and they said they prayed for and seen visions of us coming. And I
Wow.
want to tell the story to everybody that comes by, and they're looking at me like, yeah, they weren't there. So to have someone that can really understand, because it, I am a verbal processor, same, and I needed to say it. It's so deep in my heart that I want to talk about what we experienced, but people are going on with their lives, and they're not trying to be rude or anything, but you hear the same story, they get tired of hearing it. So it's great that you have your team and then someone that they have available that is paid to listen to their stories that over and over, or at least they volunteered. They knew what they were getting into when they said, we'll listen to them. It's a heavy, but in the best way heavy. That's how I feel. My my spirit was so heavy that whole week, but I never felt closer to God, because totally dependence on him when you're in the middle of serving in something like you do almost every week. You feel so close to God because you have the heart of God. I thought I can't please him better any other way, is how I feel. I thought I might get up the line in heaven. I feel sometimes I'm going to be at the back. And when I did stuff like that, I thought, do you see this? I think this might have gotten me up a few places. It's pretty unreal. And you guys, like us at Citizen Church, we've gotten to build a ministry with our family over years, and it's just been so much fun. How has it been for you guys? You have a lot of family and connections that work with you. How's it been building for 20 years with your family? They've aged now. They were young. Now they're not so young. You have grandchildren.
It's been incredible. Ann and I always loved working together. And so to have her on staff here the last 6 years full time has been game changing for Mercy Chefs, and for me, it makes me able to go more and do more to have her along, and to see our children come up in this is just incredible. All of our children have worked and touched this, and whether they've gone on to other things or stayed here, they all have mission hearts. I have to tell you, 20 years to see mission hearts birthed in all of your children is worth it. If for me, I'd do it all over again if it was just to see that birthed in the children. And they're the
And the
best.
grandchildren. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Nick and Megan's littles. I mean, they all are, are we going to help the people? Was there a storm? And I'm going to drive the trucks. And, so it just, and our older grandchildren that, Papa's going to help. And, one of our daughters lives in Wisconsin, and her little girl, um, there were tornadoes, and she said, don't worry, if the tornado comes, Papa will come for us, and he'll help take care of our town. And so
Yeah.
that's just a cool thing for children to see. This is how we live. This is what we do. We help others. That's our purpose.
Generational, what you're saying.
It
I
is
love
a
this
generational.
trip I just went on. I got to go, Dustin's wife, I was with Mandy, and then Mandy's oldest daughter, Avery. So the three of us were on this trip.
I
And
love it.
every pastor we got to talk to, and I said, this is my daughter-in-law, and this is my granddaughter. And they're just to see the generations. And then the last day we were in I've seen a lot of slums. I've never seen experienced what I experienced in Iquitos. But anyway, they were kicking off a child sponsor program, which is so critical in places like that. And we got back to the hotel room, and I knew I was going to sponsor somebody, and we are going to do other things. But when Avery, my granddaughter, she'll be she's the one getting married in October. And she said, "Do you want to see my sponsor child?" And she had sponsored, and her fiance, she called Jaden, and he also sponsored a child. And that's, you can't, I mean, when someone feels that tug to missions, my parents were very involved in missions. It is true. I said it several times. It's close to the heart of God. It's a mandate.
Right.
And when we see our children and our grandchildren following it, I think there's hope. There's a lot of hope for our families and our world because of that spirit. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Your marriage, you said you love to work together. How has this affected you guys' marriage over the 20 years?
Um,
Let's say
well,
shaped. We'll say shaped your
it's,
marriage.
yeah, we're barely making it. We're just holding on here, you know. I think, I think it's developed a great deal of trust and respect between us, both ways, both ways. You know, people ask me all the time, so, well, Gary, you heard the voice of God out loud. What did it sound like? And it's impossible to describe, but I've learned since then that the voice of God very often sounds like her. Yeah, we've just, yeah, it's the culmination, I think, of both of our lives and what we did in our careers. It all led us to these moments of what we're doing now. And when you realize the Lord always had a call on your life. I didn't get this call until I was 50 years old. It was within 2 weeks of my birthday, turning 50. And the Lord had prepared me at every step of the way in my career and my walk with him. And I think the same was true for Ann. Her whole career led her up.
My whole life.
Yeah.
So one of the things I grew up in such a strong faith tradition that, if God said he's going to do something, then you believe it and it's going to happen. And you have to just take those steps of faith. And Gary's a little bit different than that. So we really are such a balance for each other. And I think we've come to understand that. I think we also we've struggled a little since the full-time world of 6 years, and just, this is my lane, this is his lane. We can privately talk to each other and ask questions and things like that, but let each person lead in their giftings, um and so that it's a beautiful partnership that we have. And I think too that um Gary has a tremendous sense of humor, and um, we laugh a lot. So we try to bring joy into every moment. And um, it was all really tested. I battled breast cancer and am a survivor, and it was a very difficult journey. And there was a point I was hospitalized, and they thought I was gonna die, and all this stuff. And I was like, no, it's not my time yet. God hasn't finished. And, now I'm cancer free 2 years, and praising God for that, and just knowing. And I think that's really shaped our relationship too. I mean, the adversity that you face. Um, but it also gave us just even more compassion for people, and walking through such difficult circumstances, that we can be an encouragement and we can lift them up. And so I think that brings a great deal of fulfillment in our relationship together.
I think when Gary came to Albuquerque, you were not in, you were recovering. I mean, trying to come to a better place, and why you couldn't come. Maybe you gotten sick or something but I remember praying for you, and Sarah put out, it was dire. And it was a really big deal because people would look at your life and say, well, okay, it's got to be perfect because you give and give and give, and you don't go through things. And look at this healthy, wonderful marriage. They work together and they're sitting very close together. They have to love each other very much. But you've walked through such storms. And I know people look at our family's life and they'll say to me, oh, I wish my family was like yours. I'm like, no, you don't. We have the same stuff. And sometimes it's on a scale that I think it's not fair. But we walk through the same
The
thing.
enemy tries to just push you off the path as hard as he can. And so you you do have to stand strong in all of it.
Isn't it great to be married? How long have you guys been married?
31 years in July, so we're right on the bubble of that.
And it gets just better. I tell people all the time, how long have I been married? 40, am I 46 years? Yeah, 81, 46 years, 45 years.
Wow.
Okay, 45.
45.
I'm like, it's just forever. That's all I know. We were young and now we are old and we've been together the whole time. But we just were together
You
so
must have
much.
been 10.
I was 19. We
No.
worked together
Okay.
our whole ministry, but we're together a lot now because we're home together. And I'm like, don't you want to go get an office up at that North Campus? Go up there for a little while. But it's beautiful. And you see it on you, and it's encouraging for us to know, even though you've walked through some really dark times, that your marriage is strong, your kids, you have such a healthy, your family, it's tight. I see it all over your daughter and her love for her children. You don't just get that by reading a book. She's seen it modeled for her. And it's really beautiful. So we're getting ready to wind down, but where do you see Mercy Chefs in the next 10 years? What do you see happening in the future?
I'm it's a little overwhelming. I mean, especially in this our 20th year, and it's a year of covenant for us and for Mercy Chefs and our team and for the ministry. We're really drilling down on a lot of things, and that taking very intentionally a year to practice covenant with the Lord. And so we've looked back on everything. If I knew 10 years ago where we're going to be now, I would have, my head would have blown up. So to look 10 years in the future, I'm, Lord, just show me what I need to see to take that next step. And so I'll just keep taking that one step at a time with the Lord. In 10 years, I mean, in 10 years, I have no idea where we're going to be, but it's going to be miraculous and it's going to be impactful. And I pray with every ounce of strength in me that we're where the Lord wants us to be in 10 years, not where any man wants us to be, but where the Lord wants us to be. And just continuing that faith walk in obedience to a call from God.
That's amazing. And isn't it a great feeling to say, God, we'll do whatever you want us to do? I have just had to, when we transitioned the church to our son 6 years ago, which is hard for me to believe it's been 6 years. And I was trying to find my way and find what was my new normal, which I don't like. They started saying new normal during COVID. I'm like, I hate that phrase. I don't want this to be my new normal. This is not my normal. COVID is not my normal. That's why I was
That's
going,
right.
but I'm not
I'm going
having
to
it.
stand against
And I
that.
was looking for what my new, who would Kay Woodward be? And I just said, I'm sure, God, that what I would dream up will be limiting to what you can dream up and what you have dreamed up for me. So I'm just going to listen for your voice. And it is so crazy to me how the first thing I heard was write a cookbook. Of all things, write a cookbook. But it was the start to
Mhm.
storytelling. I told stories in the cookbook. It's beautiful because I love beautiful things. You said I believe in hospitality is the top of my list. I feel like that's how I show people love. I'm acts of service. So all those things, and I felt so strongly I had to do that cookbook. And that, because it's called The Table, it led to this whole podcast that's now 2 years old. We're
Wow.
just finished 50 episodes in April, two a month. And I can't believe that. And then I felt very strongly, spoke to me to write a book, and it launched a month ago. So it's been,
Oh.
but I would have not said anything to any of that. I don't know what I thought I'd do. So I'm encouraged to hear you, and I hope you're encouraged to hear me that God, his dreams, his ways are higher. It's hard to believe that sometimes when you're in the thick of what's going on. Like, I don't know that I can do this every day, God. How will I do this in 5 years? Will I be too old? I mean, you know, I'm July 1st, I'm on Medicare. I'm like, how is this possible? I got all the envelopes this week and I'm like, who's here old enough? My husband, but he is. And I can't be me. But I have to just stop and say, one day at a time, I'll say yes, right?
Yeah.
Right, that's exactly. I think we've seen so many miracles in our global work. As you talk about Peru and just what food does in transforming communities. And I would imagine that is the space that God is moving us. Um, we will have complete coverage in disasters here in the United States. Our community kitchens will continue to grow. We actually start meals in St. Louis on Monday, so growth still happens every day. But what we're seeing overseas is just we are astounded. I'll tell one quick story, and we're in an unreached people group, an area in Pakistan where we went in a year ago with a pastor who'd been working in the community for 5 years, and he never was received. It was a very closed community, but unfortunately, in the winter, for the rest of a family to survive, they often had to sell one of their children into slavery, um, and the daughters were prized because they had light eyes and lighter skin in the region, and so people would come to take the daughters. And um, so happy to report we're now 2 years. Last February and this February, no children were sold into slavery because we were providing food, and 9 of 14 elders have met Jesus, and they've now converted this community into a Christian community. And so an unreached people group has been reached, which, we know God's moving. And so that's an amazing thing.
That's uh, it's God's heart for sure, like we've mentioned. So
Yeah.
I have one more question for you, and then I want you to quickly tell people how they can get involved. But I mean, every time we sing a song in church about God's faithfulness or his goodness, I'm overwhelmed. And I think as we age and we have perspective and look back, it's a vantage point. It's a gift to have perspective. But we see God's faithfulness. How do you see the
Mm.
resilience of people and you see God's faithfulness, the goodness of God in the midst of tragedy all the time? Would you speak to that for just a minute?
Mm.
I had an opportunity to visit one of the most mature men in the country in the Lord. He had walked with the Lord since just right after World War II. And um, I asked him, I said, what had he learned in his walk all those years with the Lord that he would share with a young man of faith? And he didn't hesitate. He said, God is always faithful and ever faithful and ever able. And I think that's what I've learned through all of this. I sweat it. I worry about it. I fight to do it on my own, and I don't need to. God is faithful and God is able always. And that's what I've seen through this walk.
That's amen. I'll just say amen. Um, so if someone listening wants to volunteer or get involved, what's the easiest, quickest way for them to reach out to you or to your
Going to
team?
our website, you can learn all kinds of stories and things that we're doing. Our website, mercychefs.com. And there's ways to volunteer and to support us financially and all good things. And also our Facebook page is very vibrant and seeing all kinds of the stories that we love to tell on a daily basis. So following us on Facebook or Instagram would be a great way.
And right now we've got that 20th anniversary video up. So somebody could go watch that video and get the history of us over the last 20 years.
Yes.
So
Well,
quick before it goes away.
Stop.
that's great. They do that. I love that. I follow the ministry, and then I know when you're deploying a team, and then we can pray too, because it, this time of year seems to be a lot of that from now till through the fall. It's a storm time, and I mean, growing up in the deep South, we had our share in Mobile and Gulf Shores of hurricanes. So I
Yes.
totally understand how busy your team.
Well, Mobile was so hit by Katrina,
Yes.
and when Gary was down there, so
We were there during Sally in 2021 or whenever Gayla and I were in Gulf Shores, and we had to go seek shelter and
uh,
depend on someone to feed us. because we didn't have anywhere to go. So I've been on that end too. Would you,
Wow.
either one of you, want to pray for us as we close? I love to seal these with a word of prayer because we never know who's going to listen. We never know who's going to watch this in the future too, and their hearts stirred for even knowing Jesus. But who wants to pray?
I guess I will.
Okay, thank you.
Lord, thank you for the call and for your faithfulness and your ability. Lord, I thank you for our family at Citizen Church um, and how they are so aligned and the call on them and the way they touch the communities that they work in. Father, I pray continued blessing over our family and friends there and continue to knit us together. Father, I just pray that your will be done. Lord, the world is so full of trauma and hurt and lack and need and all sorts of ugly things, Lord. I just pray that you, Lord, would have your way in the midst of all of this. And I just thank you for being with us and for leading us. And just thanks for the call, Lord. And thanks for your grace. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you both so much. I have looked forward to this for several months and just feel like I know you now. So we've cut through the formalities, and when I get to ever meet you in person,
That's right.
now
That's
we'll be
right.
buddies. And I can't wait for this episode to come out. Thank you both for saying yes in the middle of your busy week all your life. It's all they have to do is follow Mercy Shifts. They'll see. They'll see how busy you are. But thank you guys once again. I really appreciate it.
No, thank
We had
you,
a great
Kay.
time.
It's been great. We'll look forward to that day we meet in person.
Thank you. Thank you, Foundation Health and Wellness and Jelaine Fallhaber, CNP, for being a sponsor on Table Talks. Her practice offers thoughtful, personalized care that helps patients feel informed and confident. Visit foundationhw.com to learn more. Thank you for joining me today on Table Talks. For more content and information about upcoming episodes, please visit my website at kaywoodward.com. You can also explore other podcast links and resources there. Until next time.